Welcome to another amazing episode of You Make It Happen. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about attachment styles. I've gotten multiple requests regarding explaining attachment theory, and I've been talking to y'all about it for I don't know how many episodes, and I've never explained it. And yes, I know, you can go Google it, you can look it up, you can read attached, you can do all the things and delve down the rabbit hole, and I still had listener requests to have an episode about explaining attachment theory and why the attachment styles are so important, and how it also relates to dating, if you're dating or if you're married, just relationships of any sort. So let's get into the attachment styles. Okay, this is going to be one for the listeners because I'm going to go into attachment theory as I understand it and as a non-mental health professional explaining it from a non-clinical standpoint. Because if you go and read about it online, sometimes it's boring and it's just not all that relatable, right? And so that's why y'all come to me and listen to my podcast in the first place. Not because you can't find mental health information elsewhere, but because this is, interesting, relatable. Let's say all of the above. So there are 4 main attachment styles, and according to current science, about 50% of the population is secure. That's what we want. That is the healthiest attachment style. About 20% is anxious and about 25% is avoidant. And then in the 3 to 5% category is fearful, avoidant, and or disorganized attachment. So anytime you look this up by Googling it or doing a search engine or whatever, it's going to say half the population roughly is secure. And if you're in the dating pool, you're going to say, what in the hell are you talking about? What do you mean half the population is secure? Like 99% of, maybe I exaggerate, maybe I don't, maybe it's like 98%, 98, 99%, a roughly super high percentage of the dating pool is not secure. And I'll tell you why. It's disproportionate in the dating pool. Secures are often not in the dating pool because, and you can piece 2 and 2 together, you guessed it, they're already in long-term, secure, committed relationships. So I've actually had this experience in the dating pool where I've met back-to-back disorganized, which is the most rare, and not that it's all that rare, but it's less rare in the dating pool. Anxious and avoidant are a lot less rare in the dating pool. So if you're looking at people that are single or people that are cheating or hooking up or whatever, I'm not considering ethically non-monogamous cheating or hooking up because that's a choice and they are communicating and being clear about it. And polyamorous and or ethically non-monogamous, 2 different things, by the way, let's be clear about that, is a lifestyle choice that some people make. And zero judgment, because as I've read Polysecure and read Ethical Slut, I've gotten to know more about the poly community, more about these lifestyle choices, and less stigma around them. Read those 2 books, and then if you still have a negative viewpoint on polyamorous relationships, I'd be surprised, because those books remove a lot of the stigma, a lot of the, but it's bad because of X, Y, and Z around polyamorous and ethically non-monogamous relationships. And let's be clear, those are 2 different things. So polyamorous seems to be defined by whoever you ask to define it. It's a very personal definition. And from my understanding, polyamorous means loving multiple people, not sleeping with, not hooking up with, not having sex with. Ethically non-monogamous would be hooking up or having casual relationships or friends with benefits or even, girlfriends or whatnot that you aren't in love with. Whereas polyamory would mean you're capable and interested in loving multiple people, like you're married or you have an anchor or primary partner, and then you also have a secondary partner, or you consider all your partners equal. There's different versions of polyamory. There's kitchen table polyamory. There's relationship anarchy. There's a relationship hierarchy. It's fascinating. I learned a lot about it reading those books, and I do recommend both of them. I would start with Polysecure and then move on to Ethical Slut. They are both full of tons of valuable information, and it may change your perspective, especially if you're in a boring marriage where your sex life is boring, or you're just looking to expand your horizons in your marriage or in your long-term committed relationship. Like, let's say you're dissatisfied in your love life, whether that's sexually or otherwise. Read these books, do yourself a favor, and broaden your horizons and just open your mind to new perspectives. I constantly preach lifelong learning because I think that is the key to life. That is the purpose of life, to learn and grow and be better. Self-improvement, continuous learning, growth mindset. The growth mindset being mentioned, numerous episodes of the show. Like, what can we do to be better? And being open to being wrong and being open to have your perspective changed is, I think, one of the best signs of intelligence. When you're capable of being accountable for your decisions and your behavior, that's amazing. And when you're capable of being wrong and being told you're wrong, hopefully in a constructive manner, and learning something different, opening your mind, opening your perceptions and your perspective, impressive self-awareness and intelligence. The best managers and bosses and successful CEOs and people successful at life are the people that can have a conversation or can be told they're wrong or can look at themselves and wonder, oh, did I screw that up? Was that my fault? Insofar as work and ethics and decision-making and planning and leadership, everything, personal relationships, this relates to everything. So I veered slightly off topic. Attachment styles, I'm getting back to it, I swear. This is all related though. Doing the work, keeping that growth mindset, it's all related. So there's a disproportionate number of people in the dating pool that are anxious and avoidant, which, by the way, are attracted to each other, anxious and avoidant. And I'm going to get into what these styles mean in just a second. Secure is harder to find, and it's not always obvious when you run into somebody secure in the dating pool. And I'll tell you why. Because when you meet somebody secure, you might not and probably will not feel that spark, feel that attraction, feel that chemistry, those butterflies. Ooh, it's exciting. Ooh, this person's so attractive. Ooh, God, I can't stop thinking about them. Those are all bad signs. I know, it sounds like a good sign, right? It totally does. I'm like, yes. Well, that was my thinking in my 20s and 30s when I was chasing the spark, when I was chasing that connection. I then learned, I since, did the research and learned that anything that sparks, that chemistry, those butterflies, this excitement, that is your central nervous system reacting to the other person. And it usually means it's reacting to their attachment system. Meaning, if you're putting two and two together here, you are reacting to the opposite attachment system. So it's usually the anxious avoidant dance, which is such a trap that most of us in those attachment styles fall into because that person is irresistible to you. And that person is irresistible because, and you're not going to like hearing this, I'm just going to preface this with this is not good news. This is your child-parent dynamic playing out, unfortunately. And we're going to do this subconsciously over and over and over again until you do the work on yourself to earn secure, or at least start earning secure, and you can start noticing when you're doing the same thing, when you're replaying that parent-child dynamic. Because as an anxious attacher, you want your caregiver's attention. You want them to not abandon you. Anxious attachers have abandonment issues. Avoidants have issues with intimacy. Too much intimacy, they run away. Too much love, they run away. That's scary because that was what the dynamic was between them and their caregiver as a child. And it's interesting because you say, oh, well, my brother and I grew up, or my sister and I grew up, or my sibling and I grew up in the same house, and we have opposite attachment systems. Yes, that happens because the experience for you and your sibling is not going to be the same. Just like it is for identical twins, even though they have the same DNA. The experience is wholly individual, meaning you could grow up in the exact same house and come out with two different attachment systems because it's just how your subconscious, conscious, central nervous system, how your brain processed that information and your experiences. And it just can be different. It just turns out different sometimes. So those exciting butterflies and that chemistry, that's a bad sign. I'm sorry to tell you, that's your central nervous system saying this person isn't safe. This person is the opposite attachment system, but man, are they exciting. Are they sexy? Are they attractive? Ooh, yeah, because you feel that excitement. But ask yourself, do you feel safe with this person? Do you feel seen, heard, understood? And even more importantly, did they ask you questions? Did they ask you about yourself? Like, let's just take a first date, for example. Did they ask you insightful questions about yourself? Did they ask you anything of depth? Did they ask you anything that reflects your values or who you are as a person? Or did they just ask, what do you like to do for fun? Or what do you do on the weekends? surface level crap? Did they just ask you surface level meaningless crap? I'm not here for it. So that's my personal preference for a first date, but my proclivities are often well known and often facts of mental health lore. Okay, I jest. I want something more, and I don't have time to waste. I'm in my 40s. Like, a first date for me is kind of like an interview, and it is an interview for everybody. I mean, let's face it. But for me, I'm like, I want to eliminate people. I want to not waste my time and not waste their time and not spend time getting to know somebody or get attached to somebody or like them. Hopefully not get attached, because the attachment system, but not waste anybody's time. Like, let's see, do you want kids? Do you want to get married? Where do you want to move out of the country in the next 3 months? Like, let's establish some basics here and see, is this person compatible? Because compatibility is key. Compatibility is more important than chemistry. Let me say that again, in case you thought that I was kidding, or if you didn't hear it. Compatibility is more important than chemistry. You may not have the chemistry, but if you have compatibility, the chemistry will develop. Listen to episode 3 with Leslie. Did she have instant chemistry with her husband, who she is madly in love with, and vice versa? And they have a secure, stable, healthy, loving relationship. Keyword there, secure. He is earned secure. She is earned secure. Did they have instant chemistry? Were they like, oh, let's go jump in a bed. You're the hottest thing ever. Oh my God, my butterflies. The nervous system is so excited. No. The chemistry develops. If you have that, the rest will follow. And maybe this person isn't compatible with you. Maybe they want to move out of the country in the next 3 months. Maybe they have drastically different career goals. Maybe they want to be a nomadic traveler and you have small children and you need to stay exactly where you're at. Gauge the compatibility and then everything else will follow. Okay, I know I droned on about this and I haven't gotten to the attachment styles. So let's get into the nitty-gritty and what these attachment styles are. So secure is exactly as it sounds, and I've explained in a couple other episodes. For sake of brevity and clarity, I'm just going to go through some quick definitions. Secure basically means that you can share your feelings openly and you seek support when faced with relationship problems. You can be vulnerable and open, and you know where you begin and the other person ends, meaning you know your boundaries around self-love. You have good boundaries and can take care of yourself. Anxious attachers are people with abandonment issues and issues with vulnerability. They have a conditioned fear of abandonment, perceived fear of being alone, fear of being excluded. They are hypersensitive to being perceived as disliked or not good enough. And as a result of these core wounds from childhood, they have a fear of being disconnected from other people and a fear of losing the important relationships in their life. So if something happens that they perceive as a threat to the relationship, and I'll give you an example. 20 minutes without a text. And this is severely anxiously attached. So let's be clear about that. That is severe anxious attachment. But let's say you don't respond to them for 20 minutes and they're like, oh my God, they don't love me anymore. They want to leave me. Oh my God, what did I do? What's wrong? How can I fix this? How can I salvage it? Please don't leave me. That's the essence of anxious attachment. Please don't abandon me. Don't leave me. Which, if you know anything about abandonment, that really only happens in childhood. You can't be abandoned as an adult. True abandonment only happens in childhood because you're not dependent on this person for your well-being. You're not dependent on this person for your food, water, shelter, and basic life concerns. Those are your responsibility as an adult. So to be truly abandoned, they would have to be your caregiver. And that's where the parent-child dynamic plays out subconsciously or consciously, usually subconsciously, over and over again in anxious attachers who usually attract virtually nothing but avoidance. So I'll get more into anxious attachment since it's the attachment style I know the most about, personal experience, shortly. Let's get into avoidant. This is basically people that shy away from intimacy entirely. People that really struggle to be vulnerable, not oversharers. This is the 2-word text person. And let's be clear. Let me back up a little bit. Text in general, not a good measure of any attachment style, not a good measure of a relationship, and not a good measure of somebody's level of interest. There can be people that are super into you. Check whether they're making plans. Check whether they want to see you again. Check whether they're making an effort to find time to spend together in their schedule. Are they making room for you in their life? That matters. Texting really doesn't. And texting creates, I've talked about this in an episode before, texting creates this false narrative where you're building up this picture of this person in your mind because there's no tone, because our brains are hardwired to fill in the gaps when we have gaps in data. And text creates a ton of gaps in data. So your little brain is working hard, anxious, avoidant, secure, or otherwise. Even secures do this because our brains are hardwired to do it. You are filling in the gaps. You are taking that information and they texted you good night. And you're like, oh gosh, good night. And here's an anxious attachment, good night. Do they not want to talk to me anymore? Oh God, did I do something to scare them off? Well, why are they saying good night to me? It's only 9:30. They know I stay up till 11. What's going on? The brain will interpret. The brain will fill in the gaps, whether you want it to or not. Let's take the same text message to an avoidant. Good night. Oh, thank God we're done talking. God, she was really needy, or he was just too much today. I'm not going to talk to them tomorrow because I need a break and I just need some distance, and this is going too fast. They texted me good night. It was way too intimate. I can't handle this. I'm going to take a couple of days off. And the lesser known disorganized. Let's get into what disorganized means. And let's take this text as an example, the goodnight text. Let's say you get it as a disorganized attacher. Oh, wow. I'm getting to know this person better. They said goodnight to me. Oh man, this could be real love. Oh man, that's scary. Oh God, I better not talk to them for a couple days, but I need them. I can't live without them. Oh gosh, I don't want to be abandoned, but this is scary how fast this is going. I better tell them I'm not sure if I can do this. But then as soon as they run away, I'll ask them to come back or I'll chase them hardcore. I've dated a couple of fearful avoidants, and man, that is an emotional roller coaster because it's like, go away, push away, don't hear from. And then it's, whoa, come back. Where'd you go? I can't be abandoned. Well, what do you mean you left? Well, you pushed me away. You emotionally distanced yourself and physically distanced yourself from me. What did you expect? Yeah, disorganized. Dating somebody disorganized when you're not disorganized and they rarely get together, that is an emotional flippin' roller coaster, believe me. So disorganized, if you hadn't assimilated this by now, is exactly what you think it is. It is a combination of anxious and avoidant, aka disorganized or fearful avoidant. So they are scared that you're going to leave and scared that you're going to stay. When you are trying to navigate the early stages of a relationship with somebody who is disorganized, oh my God, you are in for an emotional roller coaster ride. And it depends on their circumstances and their individuality and who that person is. And don't get me wrong, there's all kinds of factors that are not just their attachment style that are going to dictate what kind of emotional experience you're in for. Like, let's be clear, there's lots of factors here, but this is a big one when it comes to dating. I once dated this guy who's disorganized, and it didn't take me long to figure out he was disorganized. It was a couple years ago. And he would text me saying he's thinking about me and that he wants to see me and am I available this weekend? And after I would respond, I wouldn't hear from him for 10 days. I had no idea that this is a lack of self-love where I didn't put a boundary around this saying, hey, that's not acceptable. And eventually I did, but I watched all these videos and I watched the Brianna McWilliams videos that Leslie suggested on disorganized attachment and like how to get along with a disorganized attacher and how to date them and how to have patience for them, and not realizing that this is the early stages of dating and I don't have to put up with this crap. I don't now. If that person had come into my life now and I started dating them, that would have gone real quick. Like, this have been over real fast. I don't tolerate that kind of crap anymore because I have finally attained earned secure status and I want nothing to do with somebody who's disorganized and dating them. And if you fall in love with somebody who's disorganized or you're already in love with somebody disorganized, this is a different story. Then yes, your relationship may be worth saving or doing the work on or getting help or counseling or just learning about their attachment style and learning what works best for them and vice versa. That may be a different level of effort. But in the initial stages of dating, no thanks, I'll pass. So disorganized in general, they generally have like unresolved emotional issues. They have usually a tumultuous and severe childhood. It usually involves abuse. I'm not saying always, but usually. They may be unable to tolerate emotional closeness in a relationship, and they usually really struggle with vulnerability, both giving and receiving. So this is kind of fun. Now that you know about attachment styles and what they are and kind of what they look like and like how they manifest, it It's fun, and it can be a learning experiment. To the next movie you watch or a couple of shows or whatever, try to identify the attachment styles of the characters that you're watching. Oh, is she needy? Is she clingy? Is she afraid of being left? Is she insecure? So all of the attachment styles except secure are insecure. Let's be clear about that. But does she come across as insecure in herself in general? Maybe she's anxious, right? And is he pushing her away? Is he avoiding her? Is he not responding to her messages? Is he texting every few days? Is he just, keeping the basic level of interest, but not getting into anything vulnerable, deep, or raw? Okay, maybe he's avoidant. Maybe, And I'm not saying it's that easy to spot, obviously, but some shows and movies make it really easy, and some people make it really easy, and some people don't. I'll give y'all a little tip for dating if you're in the dating pool. I used to send prospective dates the attachment style test, and boy, did that blow up in my face, because I didn't think about the fact that me sending it to the person that I'm interested in dating, they are answering possibly what they think I want to hear and possibly what they think society wants to hear or society says they should be, not deep, raw, honest, vulnerable answers, which is how you get to the truth of an attachment style test. You have to be completely honest with yourself and very introspective. And if the people that you're interested in dating or the people that, you don't know if they're going to be raw and vulnerably honest. You don't know if they're capable of being that introspective or just being so honest that they can honestly answer the questions of that. I'll give you an example of a couple of questions. So there's various tests, but one of the ones I like is from the Personal Development School because it's really short. It's Thais Gibson. She's been on Sabrina's podcast. She's got great videos on YouTube. She and Brianna McWilliams have excellent attachment theory videos. And one of the questions on the quiz is, I can be very emotionally present with others, friends, family, partners, strangers, but it takes me a while to build trust and share vulnerable things about myself. True or false? False says I can be vulnerable and share things, meaning you're secure, meaning you have the ability to open up. Or true, meaning you're more avoidant. So that's the first secure/avoidant question, right? And there's a variety of questions, and I'm just reading a couple as an example. Here's another one. Here's one that is indicative of avoidant. I feel very upset when others infringe on my need for space or time alone. And that could mean you're a hardcore introvert, but it really indicates avoidant attachment in this case. Like if you're a hardcore introvert, you can usually still have one person, your partner or somebody in your space or whatever. But if you get upset when others infringe on your space and time, these are general questions. You have to look at them overall, not day by day or specific instance by specific instance. Like if you've had a hard day and you need your space, that's one thing, right? This is talking about, are you overall this type of person? Okay. So let's just be clear about that. Here's one that identifies somebody anxious, or this question is differentiating between anxious and secure. I am very attuned to others' needs and often put them before my own and resent it later. So that's saying you're anxious and you build resentments, you don't have healthy boundaries. That's the are you anxious or secure question. Do you do this or do you not do this? So the test for attachment styles is just a tool, and don't send it to prospective dates. I learned the hard way. It just blows up in your face. And I used to think this was a good idea. I don't anymore. So for the sake of clarity, I'm going to go through a few more examples about what the different attachment styles can look like and how can that manifest. I'm going to use texting as an example because I think that's relevant and I think it's easy to illustrate. So let's take a fairly innocuous text message and break it down by attachment style, interpreting the text. So let's say the text is, hey, I just got some bad news. I need to take some time. I will reconnect with you as soon as I am able. Now, this is fairly vague, right? Even a secure person is going to go, I wonder what the bad news was. Oh, well, not my business. I hope they're okay. Send a follow-up message. I am so sorry to hear that. Let me know if I can support you in any way. I hope you're okay. Talk whenever you're ready. Because you have no idea what happened. And let's try not to run away with the narrative. Let's try not to invent a narrative that causes us suffering. So that's what I used to do all the time as an anxious attacher, is fill in the blanks that causes me suffering, which is just the default for an anxious attacher. I don't anymore. And or I catch myself doing it a lot more often. I'll catch, oh, Oh, I'm causing my own suffering here. Some bad news. Oh, that means they can't go out with me anymore. They found out that they have to move, or they found out that they don't like me, or I did something wrong, or they're interpreting my last message as bad news, or whatever. Like you're putting it all on yourself as an anxious attacher. You're saying this is my fault. And or they don't love me anymore. If this person loved you, or if at early stages of dating, they don't like me, they're not interested in me, I'm the problem, I'm not physically attractive to them. Fill in the blank here. The 100 different ways or 1,000 different ways you can interpret this message in the negative, in the perspective of things are my fault and or I will be negatively affected. That's the anxious attachment view of this message. Oh, I got some bad news, need to take some time. It must be me. Must be my fault. I can't believe I'm being abandoned. What do you mean you need to take some time? And maybe they respond, maybe they fire off, which here's a rule of thumb for anybody. Take a minute. And by a minute, I mean sometimes take an hour, take a day. Take as much time as you need before you respond. Try not to respond from an emotional place, which is hard, but it's the HALT acronym. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. If you're any of those things and or emotionally upset or overwhelmed, should be in HALT with an E, then take a breath. Take a minute, take a pause, and never text, type, or email when you're in shame. That's a whole nother ballgame I'll get into in another episode. But take a beat, take a breath, take a minute, take a mo, take a break, have some fika, which is Swedish for coffee break, treat break, take a break from work, step away. It's a whole Swedish cultural meaning, which doesn't directly translate in English, but it basically means it's time for a break with some coffee and or a lovely beverage and some sort of treat or something to eat and step away from work. Basically step away from your emotions. You need to give your brain a minute to calm down and hopefully not spiral and find 1,000 negative scenarios that it could be, because you don't know. What it comes down to is you have no idea what's going on. You don't know the details. This is all the information you have, and that's vague and non-specific information in general. So don't make up stories that make you suffer, which is what anxious attachers tend to do. And let's say you're an avoidant receiving the same text message. Oh, you got some bad news and you need to take some time. Whew, I'm glad we're taking some time. God, that was a little scary. I wonder what the bad news is. Might be that they're going to break up with me, which is what I've been hoping for anyway, because that'll be a relief since this was getting too intense. I mean, I've been texting you for all of 3 days, and I know that I like you since we met once, and this is just getting too scary. Obviously, I'm totally doing improv and ad-libbing here. This is a lot of assuming and different worst case scenarios, best case scenarios, whatever, for anxious, avoidant, and secure. And lastly, disorganized. And this one is the hardest for me to ad-lib because I'm not disorganized and I never have been. And, I should have mentioned this to you guys earlier. Attachment styles are on a spectrum. You may be predominantly secure or earned secure, or predominantly anxious, or predominantly avoidant. We all swing. The attachment styles are on a spectrum. We all have moments of anxious avoidant, aka fearful, aka disorganized. We all have our moments of avoidance. We all have our moments of anxiousness, and we have our moments of secure too. That's a good part, the silver lining of that. We have moments of the secure attachment style as well, even if your predominant style is insecure. Sometimes we have secure moments like, I'm maybe anxiously attached, but I got that message and I hope they're okay. I'll reach out with a supportive message and then give them their space. Yeah, maybe you had that inclination and you're an anxious attacher. That happens too, because attachment style swings on a spectrum. Let's hope it's not wildly swinging back and forth, because that would be exhausting, but we all have our moments. So let's say the fearful avoidant, aka disorganized person receives this text message. This is hard for me to interpret because, again, I very, very little experience in this attachment style, experiencing it firsthand. I've experienced it secondhand from partners a few times, and so I'll do my best. But let's say you get that message and you're like, oh, bad news. Oh gosh, I hope it's not me. Oh, maybe it is me. Oh God, that would be such a relief. But I would miss you so much. But it would be such a relief. oh, but I don't know if I can handle this. Like, I thought you might have been a good partner, or we're married and I love you, and what did I do? Or fill in the blank with a scenario here. Like, you can use your imagination and come up with your own scenario. In fact, if you want to message it to me, I am missy.traveler on TikTok, Missy the Traveler on Instagram. You Make It Happen podcast at gmail.com, and my YouTube channel is Missy the Traveler. Please do subscribe and follow on YouTube. And send me your imagination. Send me what you came up with to fill in the blank on this scenario. What would a fearful avoidant or anxious or avoidant or secure person think of this text message? Don't agree with my thoughts or analyzing of these different attachment styles? I totally want to hear about it, and I would love to hear your opinion. And if you have questions or concerns, message me. I get to as many as I possibly can. All right, so we discussed attachment styles. We went over the different definitions, so to speak, loose definitions and some examples of what those attachment styles look like and how we can swing on the attachment style spectrum. And you're going to be one style predominantly. You're going to be, this overall. And if you're in an insecure attachment style, if you are insecure, that's okay. Because it's just where you're at. So it's okay to be you. You are enough. You are enough. And if you're interested, if you want to do the work, you can heal your attachment style. It's never going to be perfect. I have gone from anxious to insecure, and I still have my anxious moments, my friends and lovelies. I still have my moments, let me tell you. But, and we like big butts and we cannot lie, predominantly, I go through life mostly secure now. And I look at insecure attachment styles in dating, or at least severely insecure attachment styles in dating, and say, no thanks, not for me. Maybe that's for somebody else, but I choose not to endeavor down this path. So I could go on and on and on, because attachment styles is one of my favorite things to talk about, attachment theory in general. I could just go on about this for another hour, but I'll try to make this relatively short since it's a solo episode, and I want to give you guys a break between longer guest episodes, which I tend to drone on with the guests, let's face it. I love having guests on, and I tend to talk a lot, so here we are. So let's wrap it up. Let's work on loving ourselves. Love yourself, know yourself, work your stuff out, not on other people. Let's stop taking our pain out on other people. And as always, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.